What is the message to Islam? What do you want to say to Islam?
I'm ready to fight. Can't wait to fight him, and I will knock him out. I promise everybody. I promise you, peoples in Brazil. I promise my coach. We're gonna change of everybody's life, and I will bring that belt to Brazil. He's good. He's have a good kickboxing, bro. You know, but of course I'm much better. So I'm excited to test myself against him.
Islam and saying that they believe Carlos Prates has a good shot at beating him now after seeing this Ian Garry fight. What's your reaction to the MMA community some of them being a little bit negative about the way this fight played out?
Great, set it up. Bring on the next one. We're expected to fight the best ones available. So if it's Prates, great. If it's Morales, great. If it's Shavkat, great. Bring them. I don't care. Islam is not going to care who he fights. Well, look, if we are pound for pound number one and we claim that, and which we do, we shouldn't be afraid of anybody. And Islam's not. So I don't think he cares who's next. If it's the number one guy the UFC picks, that's who we fight. So, yeah, it's like you come, let's see what you can do. We'll prepare for you too, just like everybody else. And we have to respect every one of these.
Prates claims that he's next for Islam, claims he was told, you will be Islam's next opponent. You're fighting for the world championship. Signed a new deal. Signed an 8-fight deal. I mean, Prates gave us a lot of information. It would be unusual if in the process of giving us lots of information that he slipped something in there that wasn't so. But it's also possible that there was a
Carlos Prates has sent a direct warning to Islam Makhachev, promising to knock him out and bring UFC gold back to Brazil. It's an enormous claim against one of the most dominant fighters in the sport, but Prates doesn't appear interested in playing it safe. He believes he possesses exactly the kind of striking capable of creating problems Islam hasn't experienced before, and he's openly talking about doing something very few fighters have been confident enough to predict: knocking Islam Makhachev out. That immediately creates one major question. Is Carlos Prates actually the most dangerous striker Islam has faced?
Morales, Prates, Shavkat, they make me like training every day more hard. But because I say this is the real fighters who can give me good fights. It's more tough guys, you know, more big guys. With all respect, they are the most powerful division right now.
I need a message for Islam Makhachev.
I will knock you out, bro. I will knock you out. I will bring that belt to Brazil. The first welterweight champ from Brazil.
I feel in my heart of hearts it's going to be Carlos Prates. I feel like that's the move. That's the guy who's been more active. That's the guy who has the higher quality wins.
Now, still, stylistically, and particularly a guy like Prates, I do believe that the UFC is probably going to give him Carlos Prates because they like him. Bro, stylistically, that's a great matchup for Islam Makhachev.
I'm fascinated with Islam at 170 because I think it's going to be a lot tougher for him. And so now we're going to really truly see who he is. He's already proven himself at 155. There was really nothing left. Yes, there was another Arman fight. And yes, we wanted to see the Ilya fight. And I would argue that I probably wanted to see those fights more than any other challenge at 170. But now, him versus Carlos, him versus Michael Morales, him versus Shavkat, maybe a rematch down the line against Ian Garry. Sign me up. I can't wait to see how it all plays out. And so who are they going to go with? They had Carlos there. They had cameras on him. They did the split screen with Michael Morales and Carlos Prates. I feel in my heart of hearts it's going to be Carlos Prates. I feel like that's the move. That's the guy who's been more active. That's the guy.
Javier Mendez has already responded to the growing hype, and his message couldn't be much clearer. Team Makhachev isn't intimidated. Meanwhile, Chael Sonnen has weighed in on Prates' claim that he was promised the next opportunity at the welterweight championship. Prates understands exactly how difficult the matchup would be. He knows he would likely enter as the underdog, but instead of viewing that as pressure, Carlos appears to embrace it. He isn't backing away from the challenge, and according to Prates, this isn't simply about championship money or having a UFC belt wrapped around his waist. He genuinely believes he can beat Islam. That belief is what makes this potential matchup so fascinating, because confidence against Makhachev is easy before the cage door closes. Maintaining that confidence after Islam grabs you is something completely different. Javier Mendez understands that distinction better than almost anyone. While discussing the hype surrounding Prates, Mendes made it clear that one spectacular performance doesn't automatically mean Carlos is prepared for what Makhachev brings. Mendes respects Prates' abilities. He recognizes the knockout power, he recognizes the danger. But from his perspective, Islam represents an entirely different level of problem. A devastating knockout victory can tell you plenty about a fighter's striking. It tells you considerably less about what happens when Islam closes the distance, locks his hands around you, forces you toward the cage, and begins chaining takedowns together. That's where Mendes believes the matchup changes, because Prates' knockout power only matters while he's in a position to use it. Once Islam establishes control, the entire fight can become something completely different.
I mean, it's so hard because like after Ian lost, he was almost like, I lost. Like I felt like he survived. I don't know. I have like a weird mixed emotion about like he survived, and I felt like he didn't give it. It's kind of hard for me to say this, right? It's almost like I never forget when I fought Dominic Cruz, I left it out there. I was fucking battered, beaten, fucking face was all swollen. I gave it my all. Like if I could, I just really, I guess you say, laid it all out on the line. Like I'm gonna try to fucking finish you. And I just didn't feel that same killer instinct. Even Dana White said the exact same thing.
I felt like, I think that Ian is a talented guy. If he had even an ounce of killer instinct, you don't come out and hug and shake hands. And that shit drives me fucking crazy.
Dude, I had the opportunity to dethrone the greatest of the generation, of my generation, the greatest of all time, you know, the 2 divisional champ. And I didn't feel that killer instinct. But when you look at his past fights, his 5 fights, he's gone to decision. He hasn't really developed new skills. You know, he is only 20.
Suddenly, Carlos isn't setting up combinations. He's defending grips, he's fighting for underhooks. He's trying to keep his back away from the fence. And if the fight reaches the ground, he's attempting to create enough space to stand before Islam advances into an even more dominant position. That is the real test. Can Carlos Prates withstand Makhachev's pressure long enough to create the striking battle he wants? Prates certainly doesn't hide how he feels about Islam's style. While discussing Makhachev's grappling heavy performances, Carlos made it clear that those prolonged ground exchanges aren't what he wants to see. He wants action, he wants violence, and most importantly, he wants knockouts. That mentality makes the matchup entertaining, but it could also become dangerous for Prates.
Really underdog, but not because of the title, only because of the title or money, but I really want to fight him because I want to test myself against him, you know, like I'm really excited to do this. I really think I can win. I can like shock the world. I can make everybody surprised.
You feel it. You really truly feel it in your heart.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all coming together for you.
I will do this. I will do this.
You believe you'll be the one to beat him.
Because Islam isn't going to change his strategy simply because Carlos wants a striking war. If anything, Prates' desire to keep everything standing makes Makhachev's wrestling even more important. Carlos believes he has identified openings. He has specifically pointed toward moments when Islam transitions between striking and wrestling.
Is an incredible fighter. But remember, Carlos Prates fought with Ian Garry, and how did that go? Just because his last fight was fantastic against which Mo,
JDM,
right? JDM. Sorry, yes, JDM.
Yeah,
doesn't mean it's going to be Islam. It's a different fighter. He did fight fantastic.
And Prates isn't completely dismissing Makhachev's stand-up ability either. He acknowledges that Islam is a capable kickboxer, but Carlos still believes the difference on the feet is significant. His message is straightforward: I'm much better on the feet, and I can't wait to test myself against a champion. That's the challenge. Prates doesn't need to convince anyone that he can punch. His power is obvious. The real question is whether he can keep Islam standing long enough for that power to matter. Because against Makhachev,
I don't like watch fights at all, like striking fights or some of friends. Of course, I like to watch, but especially if there's some grappler fighting, I don't like to watch. I like to watch like people's getting knocked, a lot of action and things like that. And it's crazy because now I really like to train grappling, you know, more than striking, but I don't like to watch. Yeah, but I don't like to watch like grappling and fighters go to the ground and bored fight.
one mistake can completely change the geography of the fight. Throw a combination too aggressively and Islam can change levels underneath it. Overcommit on a power shot and suddenly you're defending a body lock. Allow your back to reach the fence and the available escape routes become smaller. Carlos may believe he has found weaknesses in Islam's entries, but recognizing those openings while watching footage is considerably easier than exploiting them while Makhachev is standing directly in front of you. Javier Mendez isn't losing sleep over the challenge. His position is simple. If Carlos Prates is next, bring him. If someone else earns the opportunity, bring them instead.
Especially up close, do you see holes? Do you see, things that you're going to try to exploit when you fight him? He's been 17 wins in a row, and usually very dominant. But yet I'm wondering, when you watch him, do you see holes that you're going to try to exploit?
Yeah, especially on the takedowns.
Oh.
Try takedowns on when he's striking, I like to see the way I can, he defend something, stop some takedown or things like that.
Okay. What about on the feet? What about the striking? What do you make of his striking?
He's good. He's have a good kickboxing, bro, but of course I'm much better. So I'm excited to test myself.
Team Makhachev wants the best available challenger, and Mendes refuses to allow one spectacular knockout or a wave of hype to change the confidence surrounding Islam. That's not necessarily disrespect toward Prates, it's confidence built from watching Makhachev solve elite opponents repeatedly. Different body types, different striking styles, different grappling backgrounds, different levels of power. Islam has continued finding solutions. Now Carlos wants to become the problem he cannot solve, and Prates isn't predicting some narrow decision victory.
Islam is not going to care who he fights. Well, look, if we are pound for pound number one and we claim that, which we do, we shouldn't be afraid of anybody, and Islam's not. So I don't think he cares who's next. If it's the number one guy the UFC picks, that's who we fight. So it's like
I'm going to say to Islam.
I'm ready to fight. I can't wait to fight him. And I will knock him out. I promise everybody. I promise you, people in Brazil. I promise my coach. We're gonna change up everybody's life. And
He wants to knock Islam unconscious. He wants the kind of finish that instantly changes the welterweight division and potentially brings another UFC championship back to Brazil. That's an enormous promise. But against Makhachev, pursuing a knockout can become extremely dangerous. The harder you chase the finish, the more opportunities you can potentially create for Islam to enter underneath your offense. That's why Mendes continues returning to the same fundamental question: takedown defense. Mendes has repeatedly emphasized this dynamic when discussing dangerous strikers against Islam. An opponent can possess explosive power, he can understand range, he can have dangerous combinations, but eventually he has to answer the grappling question.
Him and Islam would look if he was the next one.
It's a very dangerous fight because he's an extremely explosive, striker that knows how to use his range really, really well. And I look forward to the challenge. So if that's who they pick, I look forward to it. And let's see how well he does with the takedown defense. And let's see how well he does with Islam striking too. It's like everybody was thinking that Islam had to take Ian down. Well, it didn't quite work out as well as people thought, did he? He hit him with the beautiful kick. He hit him with some decent strikes, So it wasn't like he had to take him down. It was the best option, and obviously it doesn't take a scientist to know that with Prates is always going to be the best option to take him down. So it's a matter of, we're going to stand with you. And if you give us the right opportunity, well, we could take you out, but ultimately we want to take you to the ground and let's see how well you defend. And then when we get you down, let's see how well you're able to get back up or reverse us. So those could be the telltale signs of what's going to happen.
What happens when Islam gets his hands on him? Can he defend the first takedown? Can he defend the second attack that immediately follows? Can he escape the cage? And if Islam gets top position, can he actually return to his feet without exposing his neck or giving away another dominant position? That's the test awaiting any striker who believes he can solve Makhachev. Ariel Helwani pushed Prates directly on this issue from another angle. Can anyone realistically survive 5 rounds against Islam and win convincingly, or does the champion essentially need to be finished? Prates didn't hesitate. In his mind, the answer is a knockout. Carlos believes defeating Islam decisively over the course of a full fight is incredibly difficult. So instead of trying to beat Makhachev everywhere for 25 minutes, Prates wants to remove the judges from the equation completely. Find the opening, land clean, end the fight. It's a dangerous strategy, but perhaps that's exactly what makes Carlos such an intriguing challenger. He's not entering the conversation believing he needs to become a better wrestler than Islam. He isn't pretending he can dominate Makhachev from top position. He's betting on his greatest weapon, his striking, and if Prates gets enough time and space to use it, the champion could face genuine danger. But before that matchup can become reality, the UFC has another major decision to make. Chael Sonnen isn't convinced that Carlos Prates versus Michael Morales is necessarily the smartest way to determine Islam's next challenger. On the surface, it makes perfect sense. Two dangerous contenders, one fight, winner gets Makhachev, but Sonnen sees another side. Why eliminate one potential challenger when both could eventually become major title fights? If Prates and Morales fight each other now, one man's momentum immediately disappears. Instead of having two fresh contenders available for Islam, the UFC potentially sacrifices one.
Because you don't just say you're going to beat him, you say you're going to knock him out. You believe that in your heart.
Because I think the only way to beat Islam is knocking him out.
You can't go the distance with him.
Yeah, I don't think somebody can right now. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Amosov, I don't know, can fight in 5 rounds and beat him by points. But I don't think nobody can beat him by points, so I think that the easier way, not easier, but the less hard way.
And if Makhachev isn't returning immediately, that matchmaking decision becomes even more complicated. That's why the welterweight title picture is becoming so interesting. Carlos Prates wants Islam now. Michael Morales is pushing toward the same opportunity. And Makhachev's team appears perfectly comfortable facing whichever contender the UFC ultimately decides deserves the shot. But Prates has already made sure everyone understands exactly what he intends to do if his name gets called. He's not coming to survive Islam Makhachev. He's not coming to win 3 rounds and escape with a decision. Carlos Prates is coming to knock him out. And now he has to prove that the most dangerous promise in the welterweight division is more than just words. Chael Sonnen has now added another major layer to the uncertainty surrounding Islam Makhachev's next title defense. And surprisingly, Sonnen doesn't actually have a problem with Carlos Prates getting the opportunity. Quite the opposite. Chael describes Prates as an exciting, powerful, dangerous fighter who has quickly become extremely popular with MMA fans. From a promotional standpoint, the appeal is obvious. Carlos brings knockout power. He brings confidence. He brings an aggressive style that creates immediate danger. And perhaps most importantly, he brings something completely different from the challenge Islam recently faced. If the UFC wants an opponent capable of creating genuine suspense every second the fight remains standing, Prates certainly fits that description. One clean punch could potentially change everything. That's exactly why Sonnen understands the attraction. But understanding why the fight would be entertaining isn't the same as understanding how Prates suddenly became the #1 contender. And that's where Chael has questions. His position is essentially, I still don't understand how Prates suddenly became the next contender. Because according to Sonnen, the title picture isn't nearly as straightforward as some people are making it sound. Carlos has publicly spoken as though he's been promised the opportunity. But if that really is the case, Chael wants to know what happened behind closed doors. What changed? Was the UFC so impressed by Prates' recent performances that they decided he no longer needed another eliminator? Did the promotion simply decide that his style creates the most compelling matchup with Islam? Or has Prates been told something privately that hasn't yet been completely explained publicly? Those questions matter because another undefeated contender is sitting directly beside him in this conversation, Michael Morales. And Sonnen believes Morales may actually have the stronger argument. One of the biggest reasons is something casual fans can easily overlook. Morales has positioned himself as a backup. That role can become incredibly important in the UFC. Being the backup fighter means remaining prepared while 2 other athletes receive most of the attention. You make weight, you stay ready, and if something happens at the last possible moment, you're expected to accept one of the biggest fights of your career with almost no warning. According to Sonnen, that commitment carries weight. Morales has demonstrated that he's willing to be available if disaster strikes. If an injury happens, an illness appears, or something prevents one of the scheduled fighters from competing, Morales could potentially step into a championship fight on extremely short notice. And historically, fighters who accept those backup responsibilities often remain close to the front of the title queue afterward. That's why Chael believes people shouldn't automatically assume Carlos Prates has already secured Islam. From Sonnen's perspective, Michael Morales has done exactly what a future title challenger is supposed to do. He's winning. He's maintaining his momentum, he's staying available, and he's placing himself in position to capitalize the second an opportunity appears. That creates a fascinating problem for the UFC, because Carlos Prates may be the more obvious stylistic attraction. Put one of the division's most terrifying knockout artists against arguably the most complete grappling-based champion in MMA, and the storyline writes itself. Can Prates land the bomb before Islam gets his hands on him? But Morales brings his own undefeated momentum and championship argument, so suddenly, this isn't simply a question of whether Carlos deserves a title shot. It's about whether he deserves it more than Michael Morales, and that's a considerably more difficult debate. If Prates really has already received some form of guarantee, Morales could find himself waiting despite doing almost everything correctly. But if no official decision has been made, Carlos may still have another obstacle between himself and Makhachev. That obstacle could even be Morales himself. On paper, a Carlos Prates versus Michael Morales title eliminator sounds almost perfect. 2 explosive contenders, 2 dangerous finishers, 1 opportunity against Islam. Let them fight and remove all uncertainty. But as Sonnen has already argued, that solution comes with a significant downside. You sacrifice one contender's momentum. If Prates loses, the anticipated Islam-Prates matchup disappears. If Morales loses, another fresh challenger is removed from the immediate title picture. And when you're dealing with a dominant champion who needs compelling new opponents, eliminating viable challengers unnecessarily isn't always the smartest promotional strategy. The UFC therefore has several possible directions. They could give Prates the championship opportunity immediately. They could reward Morales for remaining ready as the backup, or they could force both men to settle the debate inside the octagon. Every option has consequences, but there's another reason the Prates matchup continues generating so much attention. Carlos has already made it personal enough to create a story. He isn't respectfully asking for an opportunity. He's telling everyone what he believes will happen when he gets it. Prates believes he can knock Islam Makhachev out. That immediately separates him from challengers whose entire strategy begins with simply surviving Islam's wrestling. Carlos doesn't sound interested in surviving. He wants to attack, he wants to pressure, and if Islam decides to exchange with him, Prates believes that will become the champion's biggest mistake. Javier Mendez sees the situation completely differently. From Team Makhachev's perspective, Prates can say whatever he wants before the fight. Eventually, he still has to answer the same question almost every Islam opponent has failed to solve. What happens when Makhachev gets his hands on you? Carlos can possess devastating knockout power. He can be longer. He can be dangerous from distance. He can believe he's technically superior on the feet. But if Islam closes the distance and forces him into repeated wrestling exchanges, none of those advantages automatically guarantee anything. And that's why Mendes isn't intimidated by the matchup. Team Makhachev has spent years watching opponents arrive with a specific weapon they believe will finally solve Islam. Power, speed, jiu-jitsu, movement, size, elite striking, and Islam continues finding ways to remove those weapons from the fight. Prates believes his power will produce a different outcome. Mendes believes Islam's grappling will reveal exactly where Carlos remains vulnerable. That disagreement alone creates an excellent championship storyline, but Chael Sonnen is questioning whether we're getting ahead of ourselves. Because before everyone begins breaking down Islam, Makhachev versus Carlos Prates, the UFC still has to decide whether Prates is actually next. And Michael Morales isn't going anywhere. That means the welterweight division suddenly has a fascinating situation developing at the top. Islam Makhachev remains a champion everyone is chasing. Carlos Prates believes he possesses the weapon capable of ending his reign. Michael Morales believes his own performances and willingness to remain ready have earned him the opportunity. And the UFC has to determine which challenger makes the most sense. For Prates, the message couldn't be clearer. Give him Islam and he believes he'll bring the championship back to Brazil with a knockout. For Javier Mendez, the response is equally straightforward. Bring Carlos, bring Morales, bring whoever earns it, Islam will be ready. And Sonnen remains a skeptical voice in the middle, asking the question that could completely change the next championship fight. Has Carlos Prates actually been guaranteed Islam Makhachev, or is everyone overlooking Michael Morales? Because until the UFC makes its decision official, nothing is guaranteed. And if Morales remains directly in the title picture, Prates may discover that calling out Islam is considerably easier than actually getting into the cage with him. So who deserves the next opportunity? Should Carlos Prates receive the immediate title shot and test his devastating striking against Islam Makhachev? Or has Michael Morales done enough to jump ahead and become the champion's next challenger? Drop your prediction in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more UFC news, fighter reactions, predictions, and MMA breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.